Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I am your host, Chris Gianta. Over there to my actual left, as you cannot see on YouTube, unfortunately, is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I am doing well today. It's episode number 2 of our players to watch. We had a solid week last week. We had one repeat, which was the very first player.
Yeah.
It was technically for me the second player, but yeah. We got the NL East this week, a team with 3 playoff contenders, and also the Marlins and Nationals.
Yes. Who I guess you could call not World Series contenders.
Yeah.
But the most recent team to win the World Series in that division is the Nationals.
No, that's not true.
Or wait, oh yeah, the Braves. The Braves won it in 2021.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would have been funny, but it's not true.
The last cool World Series.
Yeah, I'd say
2022 was all right.
2022 was
bad. It had some
cool.
It had some good games, but the series overall was like,
yeah,
yeah,
especially like once it went to
game 1 was good, game 3 was good, game 4 was good.
Well, game 4 also was like, it's a no hitter in a World Series.
That's why it was good.
One
of my favorite tweets to come out of that, that like Super 70s sports account.
Yeah.
That reeks of like I'm better than you because I was born before you. They were like getting upset about the combined no hitter, and they said like let's see how many people can name the 4 pitchers come next year, and I think it was Jeremy Frank was like, what are the odds this guy knows who Reed Detmers is?
Yeah. Right.
The one guy to throw a solo no hitter in 2022.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is stupid. But, I mean, I guess their point was, like, you remember the playoff no-hitters because there's literally only 2, but
yeah,
I don't know.
And they were, I guess Don Larson's not a Hall of Famer, but one of them was done by a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Were they trying to, like, argue that they should have just kept Javier in, or...
I think they're arguing who cares.
Right. Yeah, true. Well, I've had my slander on no-hitters before.
Yeah.
So
I just thought it was funny that he was treating no-hitters as like this immortality type thing where it's like if you throw a no-hitter, everyone knows you, but if you throw a combined no-hitter, no one remembers.
Yeah, and I am on board with hating that type of account because I think I do see tweets sometimes where it's like, hey, this guy, he had 15 complete games 7 years in a row. I mean, why isn't it like this anymore?
I saw a tweet from like one of those like old baseball accounts. I couldn't believe it. It said, if Pete Rose never bet on baseball, would he have been a Hall of Famer? And I was like, what? The hit king? The guy with 4,000 career hits?
It's weird that it's an old school account considering that literally he has the most hit, which is
that's what made me confused. I was like, is this like a sabermetric account or is it a 70s account?
Yeah, because I mean, sabermetrically, still he is a Hall of Famer, but not necessarily like.
But not the way he is if you just look at his hits.
Yeah, like an inner circle guy, because he had 70-something wins above replacement.
Yeah, which to me is still first ballot, but.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, 79.6 WAR, but also consider
like a 110 OPS plus career.
118 OPS plus, but also like he did it in the most amount of games ever, which you can also like add to the resume of like he did, but also like he didn't have a crazy peak, I guess you could say, but we're not here to necessarily talk about that. But yeah, those accounts can be frustrating sometimes, but I guess they're fun to dislike.
They're fun to dislike, and sometimes they do post some fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, remember when the Orioles wore orange pants?
Yeah, true.
They'll post that one, 7 times a year.
Oh, yeah, when Cleveland were all red.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something. But yeah, I think maybe I should do a parody account, but do dead ball.
Yeah.
Being like, wow.
It's like, yeah, 70s sports. Oh, you thought I was talking 1970s?
Yeah. Like, why aren't people like Cap, or why aren't players like Cap Anson anymore? He only struck out once in 1871.
People are doing that more than once a game now.
When you could pick if it's a ball or a strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe if I'm bored, if another pandemic happens, I think that's what I'll do.
So there would be some upsides to a second pandemic, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
As Chris creates the parody old school sports account.
Yes. Gonna try to push that. Try to get some.
Who remembers when Silver King?
Yeah. Guys are.
They don't make them like that anymore.
Guys are getting pulled after. Guys are getting shut down after 190 innings these days. What about Old Hoss with 678?
Old Hoss had 60 wins this year. This team didn't even get to 60 wins.
Yeah.
The Nationals won 55 games. Old Hoss won 60.
Well, speaking of innings, the one guy who pitched 200 last year, good segue here, was in the news because actually a guy on Twitter, a reporter,
Adam McKelvey, I think it was.
Adam McKelvey, had an interview. It was like kind of a press circle at the Brewers spring training site, and they were talking to Corbin Burnes, and they were talking about his arbitration hearing. Apparently, Corbin Burnes is his team were trying to get $10.75 million, and the Brewers were trying to get him for like $10 million or like 10.0 something million. And he talked about the arbitration hearing. I'll just drop it into the into the podcast. It's only a couple minutes, so yeah, we can. Yeah, we'll.
I'll send you the tweet so you can easily access it.
Yeah, take a listen to Corbin Burnes talking about the arbitration process.
At the hearing, flew in the night before. Had the hearing all day Tuesday. Spent Valentine's Day on a plane. Got home at 10, 11 o'clock and got to see my wife before she fell asleep. So that was kind of how the Valentine's Day went. So that was fun. But like I say, you kind of find out your true value. You think you work hard for 7 years in the organization and 5 years with the big league team, and you get in there and basically they value you much different than what you thought you contributed to the organization. And it's just it's obviously it's tough to hear, it's tough to take, but they're trying to do what they can to win a hearing. But I think there was obviously other ways that they could have gone about it, and probably been a little more respectful with the way they went about it. But at the end of the day, here we are. They obviously they won it, but when it came down to winning or losing the hearing, it was more than that for me.
Corbin, this is everyone's fear for a player, especially a star player, going to a hearing, that it creates just some maybe not bad blood, but just some hard feelings that weren't there before. How do you guys repair that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that the relationship is definitely hurt from what perspired over the last couple of weeks. There's really no way getting around that. Obviously, we're professionals, and we're going to go out there and do our job, and I'm going to keep giving what I can every fifth day that I go out there. But when some of the things that are said that for instance, basically put me in the forefront of the reason why we didn't make the postseason last year. I mean, that's something that probably doesn't need to be said. We can go about a hearing without having to do that. So that's kind of one of those things that obviously there was no attacking of character of person of who I was, but just some of the stuff that was said that definitely didn't need to be said is something that I think kind of disappointed everyone.
So yeah, Corbin Burnes, not very happy. Apparently, the Brewers were kind of aggressive in dishonoring him in how he pitched last year, I guess.
Arbitration is never a fun process for players. Like, I've heard plenty of stories. I remember Sean Casey going on MLB Network and talking about like his experience in arbitration and hearing his team, talk about why he shouldn't be paid, X amount of dollars. But to do that to Corbin Burnes is insane to me, because that is that is a large part of the reason that your team is even good in the first place, because I mean, the Brewers' rotation is its strongest point, and that's not even up for debate. Corbin Burnes won the Cy Young a year ago. If you take away the standards of his Cy Young 2021, he still had an excellent season in 2022. He had a sub-3 ERA, I believe.
Yeah, 2.94.
Yeah, 2.94 ERA. A FIP in like the low threes, I think.
3.14.
Yeah, I mean that's. To say that he is at the forefront of reasons they didn't make the playoffs is like, you're just lying.
Yeah.
Like, you're just straight up lying. Like, did we watch the same team?
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, okay, well, let's look at the OPS leaderboards.
Yeah.
for the Brewers. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, yeah, I guess maybe you could make the argument that if he performed like he did in 2021, yeah, they would have made the playoffs. And, yeah, that's probably true. However, yeah, like,
but
you can't, like...
To say forefront of the reasons, it's like, yeah, because Corbin Burnes didn't have the best FIP in a century again.
Right. And the thing with that is, like, I don't know, it's just weird to ever even bring that up, because it's an arbitration hearing. It's just about him. It's not about the team. It was
also over $700,000, too.
Yes. That's the most ridiculous part of it.
Yeah.
That's the most ridiculous part of it. Like, you know, it shouldn't even be about, like, oh, you're the reason the team didn't make the playoffs. Like, it's about, with arbitration hearings, you're going over, like, season stats, maybe over the past couple years' stats.
What you're projected to do in the next year.
Yeah. You know, this is a guy who led the league who led the NL in strikeouts, too, last year.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, it's not about, like, oh, maybe you had a bad start toward the end. Like, that's a bad argument. But yeah, I guess the Brewers did win the arbitration case. Yeah, it's a weird process that baseball has done forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird.
And ultimately, this is probably going to lead to Corbin Burnes leaving the Brewers, whether it's by trade or by free agency. I mean, I can't imagine he's going to be too open to extension talks, and I can't imagine the Brewers are going to, be willing to shell out some money for Corbin Burnes for an extension, considering they didn't want to do it in arbitration, and they went to great lengths to not do that.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
Yeah, exactly. Went to great lengths to not pay him $700,000 more. I mean, there's arbitration hearings a lot. I remember... I don't have them all memorized, but I just remember, I think Mookie Betts, in his second year arbitration, first year arbitration, it was like the Red Sox were offering 7.5, he wanted 10.5. So that's
that's a pretty significant. I remember a couple of years ago, Marcus Stroman went on Twitter to talk about how upset he was at the Blue Jays, and it was a $400,000 difference.
Right.
So they could have met in the middle at $200,000.
Yeah, it's with a Mookie Betts situation with the Red Sox, 7.5 versus 10.5. It makes sense to have a hearing over that, and Betts ultimately won, luckily for him. But with this situation, I don't know, it's
I mean the Brewers have almost terminally destroyed their relationship with their ace pitcher. Over $700,000.
Yeah, it's literally the best player on their team.
Literally, yes, the best player on their team. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they're scared of an extension because they don't want to, remake the Yelich contract, which I kind of understand because the Yelich contract obviously has not worked out. And it's not even a situation where it was yeah, of course that contract was going to fail. Christian Yelich was coming off of an 1,100 OPS season. There was no reason to believe he was going to fall off the way that he did.
Yeah, absolutely.
That contract almost felt like a steal when it was signed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I thought he was being way underpaid. He was at the time a top 5 player in baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because maybe a team that has more financial flexibility or claims to have more financial flexibility is trying to extend this guy instead of trying to not pay him $700,000 more.
There is a real owner epidemic in baseball, where a large chunk of the owners, probably like 2/3 of the owners, just openly, they won't say the quiet part out loud, but they really don't care about winning. They care more about profiting.
Yeah.
And there is no better sign of it than what the Brewers have pulled right here with Corbin Burnes, because I think the Brewers are a good owner away from being a perennial World Series contender. I mean, with a small market and a much smaller budget than the other, big name teams like that have been, in the scene for the last few years, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Braves. Like the Brewers, they just missed the postseason this last year for the first time since 2017. I mean, they've been in the mix through this entire time. And they're drafting well, they're developing well, especially on the pitching side. Maybe not as much the offensive side, but they're doing enough. And the one place where they're lacking is ownership.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like they were one of the last teams. I think the Marlins were the last team to sign a major league free agent this offseason, and the Brewers were second to last. Or it was the other way around.
Right. Like it's and yeah, they have a lower tier payroll. They have, it's not bottom barrel, but they have only the 19th highest payroll in all of baseball when, they should be competing for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And they have guys like
if they
Corbin
can get
Burnes.
I'm not even asking them to spend like the Mets do. Like if they can get a top 10 payroll, like they have a real shot. And not only that, but like they play in a ballpark that is so hitter friendly with a team that's lacking offense. Like there are some obvious moves that could be made, especially on the free agent side of things.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even going back to pre-2022, like there were some good bats. There were some good bats they could have gotten that would have like fit their mold, like Kyle Schwarber.
Kyle Schwarber would have been great for the Brewers.
Yeah.
Even like Joey Gallo, you could argue, could have been great for the Brewers.
Right.
Gary Sanchez is still out there. They just lost Omar Narvaez in free agency. And
Yeah.
Gary Sanchez is out there. I know that he's relatively average for catchers, but his game fits that ballpark more than others.
Yep. But yeah.
Like, who even is the Brewers catcher going into this year?
Yeah, I have no idea.
It is...
The fact that this was
It
a
is.
fight.
I guess it's William Contreras.
Oh right, yeah.
Yeah.
But the fight over the fight over the $700,000, that definitely screams like business move, like that a guy, a guy would do at a company over like, maybe, $1,000, even though if it's not the biggest thing in the world, it's like you gotta, make
It's
this business.
It's like dead weight or something.
Make this business move. Yeah. It's nothing personal, just business. But yeah, I mean, I guess, like, I don't know if the Brewers have any plans of trying to extend him, or at least seriously extend him. Maybe they'll throw him, a dead fish offer that they know he's not going to take. But like, this is a guy heading into his age 28 season. Already has a Cy Young under his belt and just, had a 134 OPS or 134 ERA plus and led the league in strikeouts. And they're, this is how they're kind of going about trying to pay him. That's just strictly business. And, it makes sense that a player wouldn't appreciate that at all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
By the way, the Brewers were the last team to sign a major league free agent. The first one they signed, I believe, was Wade Miley on January 4th. And keep in mind, the entire offseason was basically over on January 4th.
Yeah. Yeah, very true. Yeah, like
they could have signed J.D. Martinez to a deal. That could have worked. Yeah, I mean, I can go down the list here, but there
even
are
like
plenty.
Nelson Cruz or
Nelson
something.
Cruz, they could have brought him back.
Oh yeah, he started his career there, right?
Yeah. Like 2006.
But yeah, so yeah, that's just a
Mitch Haniger.
This type of stuff happens all the time, unfortunately. But yeah, much higher profile this time.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of MLB players.
And also he also went more public with it too.
True. And yeah, it's not like he went out of his way and tweeted it. It was in an interview, but he didn't hold back.
Which good for
is
him.
good.
Good
yeah.
for him. Yeah. Because you know what? There are going to be teams out there in 2 years when he's a free agent that are going to be like, yeah, this guy will make us make the playoffs. He won't be the reason we don't make it.
Right.
They're going to give him what he deserves, and he deserves a 9-figure contract, probably above $200 million, maybe even depending on the next couple of years. He's gonna. I mean, how old is Corbin Burnes? He's probably like 26 or so.
Heading into his age 28 season.
Okay, so I was a year off.
But yeah, I mean, he'll be heading into free agency at age 30.
So maybe he doesn't get 200 mil, but he gets like a 6-7 year deal.
You know,
maybe he does. Maybe he does gets the average annual value.
Like
it's possible.
Pitchers, we talked about it with the Darvish thing. Pitchers age differently. Like
they do.
He gets it wouldn't be absurd to sign him through like age 37, age 38. And yeah, if he continues to be one of the best pitchers in baseball, he should get 30 mil a year. That's how it should go. Yeah, I'm very offhand here, but I don't know if this salary tracker is accurate, but if the Guardians' payroll is $75 million, that means Josh Bell is taking up over 1/5 of their payroll.
That's hilarious.
It's just weird that they went out and got him particularly.
Yeah, and they got him on a weird deal too.
Yeah, 2 years, 32.
Yeah. I was happy to see it. It's
yeah,
cool
it's
to
good.
see the Guardians spending, but
it is funny that he's gonna he's gonna be their anchor, I guess. In the payroll.
Yeah, that's the guy to blame if the team underperforms.
Yeah, it's
like, dude, you're taking up way too much of our $75 million. Like, do you understand? We're almost a third of the way to the luxury tax.
Yeah,
and it's because of you.
But yeah, so yeah, that was some bad news for the Brewers. But yeah, we talked about the Brewers and the rest of the NL Central last week. Now we will be, this week we are talking the NL East. The order of these teams was completely random, meaning we put them in...
the divisions was random. The teams are...
Yeah. The divisions were completely random, meaning we put them in a computer, one of those randomizer websites. And yeah, NL East was second on the board. But yeah, it's arguably the best division in baseball this year. As you mentioned earlier, 3 legit World Series contenders here.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. And yeah, what we do with each team, we start off by, kind of talking about the state of their team, who they lost, who they added, and then getting into one particular player to watch who's usually kind of under the radar, and a lot of the times also on the younger side. But yeah, we'll start with the Washington Nationals. They went 55-107 last year. They finished last in the NL East. They lost Luke Voit, Anibal Sanchez, Nelson Cruz, Steve Cishek, and Eric Fetty. They added Trevor Williams, Corey Dickerson, Jamer Candelario,
AR alum,
friend of the show, Willie Peralta, Dominic Smith, Michael Chavis, and Alex Colomé. So with the Nationals, who are you looking at?
Well, this team is interesting.
Yeah.
They have some guys who play baseball allegedly. This pick, it feels obvious for this team, but if he was on any other team, this would be a really good under the radar pick. I'm going with Joey Meneses. I wouldn't be surprised if that's your guy as well.
No, I actually was thinking maybe you might go with him, so I figured, yeah.
Nice. Well, great call, great read on your part.
A lot of this is me trying to.
You're a really good defensive coordinator there.
Yes, a lot of my picks are like, maybe Daniel won't pick this guy.
So I am going with Joey Meneses. He made his debut on August 2nd, the literal day of the trade deadline, where they had traded Juan Soto and Josh Bell. Mm-hmm. From August 1st through the end of the season, he ranked tied for 11th in the majors in weighted runs created plus at 156, and he also ranked 5th in slugging with a 563. He only trailed Aaron Judge, Jose Altuve, JT Realmuto, and Manny Machado in slugging percentage for the last 2 months of the season. He became the second player in Nationals/Expos history to have a 925 OPS or higher in their first 56 career games. The other one was Juan Soto, and this is a minimum of 230 plate appearances. So it's Juan Soto and Joey Meneses to do that in franchise history. During that time, he ranked 14th among the 89 hitters with at least 150 batted balls in average exit velocity with a 91.4 mile per hour average exit velocity. I thought this was pretty cool. In 23 plate appearances against curveballs last year, he managed an 8.9 run value per 100. That means for every 100 curveballs he saw, he produced about 9 runs, which is crazy. In fact, it's the second highest among the 2,469 players that have at least 20 plate appearances and on every pitch. He batted .524 against curveballs and slugged .1143. That slugging percentage ranked second among the 3,142 players to have at least 10 plate appearances and on every pitch. And also from August on, he slugged .950 on balls that went to the opposite field. That ranked second among the 121 players with at least 750 total pitches seen over that time. The only player he trailed was Aaron Judge. So Joey Meneses hit the ball really well. He debuted at age 30 last year. But he is probably the guy to watch for the Nationals going into this year. Maybe he could turn into a trade piece because I can't imagine he's part of the Nationals' long-term plans. But if he can keep this going this year, he's a guy that someone could look out for at the deadline to better their team.
Yeah. Meneses was just a random, interesting player last year. And, great batted ball profiles last year as a first baseman. Yeah, almost a 10% barrel rate.
Yeah.
He was pretty. 39% sweet spot percentage, which is 6% above average. Yeah, that's he's definitely a guy he's showed he was a good MLB hitter, I guess, which is interesting. He's 30 years old, but I guess he's figured it out now.
Yeah.
My player to watch, he's good, but I don't know if he's more interesting than good, or he might be more interesting than he is good. I'm talking about Hunter Harvey.
Shout out to the 2020 Orioles.
Yeah,
he was my player to watch.
Yeah, he came to the Nationals from the Orioles. And in 39 and a third innings pitched last year, he had a 2.52 ERA, 2.07 FIP, and only 1 home run allowed. Out of 253 relievers to throw 30-plus innings pitched last year, his FIP ranked 12th. And his four-seamer averaged 98.3 miles per hour, and he threw that four-seamer 77.0% of the time. Out of 446 pitchers to throw 500-plus pitches last year, Harvey's four-seam fastball usage was 5th highest. And 54.3% of his overall pitches, all pitches involved, were four-seam fastballs of at least 98 miles per hour, and that is the highest percentage of such pitches out of 446 pitchers. And he did well with the fastball. It was something that worked for him. Hitters hit 202 and slugged 308 off his four-seamer. He also had a negative 2.3 run value per 100 against it, and that was the 6th best among 225 pitchers that had 100-plus plate appearances and on four-seamers. So in layman's terms, he was like top 5%. Four-seamer per four-seamer that he threw, he was top 5% in getting results on that four-seamer. Along with that. He's 28 and under control through 2026. So, he could be a trade target. He does have a couple more years of control, a little bit on the younger side. And if he continues to be a very good reliever, he's not something that the Nationals necessarily need to keep around. So maybe the Nationals could get a decent prospect out of Hunter Harvey if he continues his success. But yeah, he's basically like Spencer Strider in reliever form.
Yeah,
by throwing a 98 mile per hour fastball
all the time.
all the time. It's pretty wild. So, should be fun to watch if you ever happen to have a Nationals game on and he comes out there
accidentally.
Yeah, if accidentally, if your favorite team is maybe if you're a Mets fan and and you're watching him against the Nationals or watching them against the Nationals, you know it's coming. It's a fastball.
Yeah.
So see what happens.
A one-pitch pitcher, as they call it.
Yeah. Yep.
Not quite to Matt Whistler's degree, but
yeah, pretty old school. So yeah, now we get into questions. What do you have to ask for me?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Hunter Harvey for making it back to Players to Watch. It's been a few years, pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Literally one of the 20 players that was picked by, or I guess 40 players technically, because we did 4 divisions.
Yeah, I can't wait till it's 2029 and it's time for Andy Rodriguez again.
Yeah. Or it's time for like Logan Gilbert for the 3rd time.
Yes. Yeah.
So my question, over under 14.5 walks for Luis Garcia. He played. He had a 2.9% walk rate last year. He had 11 walks in 360 plate appearances.
So I guess it relies on the number of plate appearances he has.
And Fangraphs projects he's going to have 500.
Yeah, I mean,
he's 23 years old, so I mean you'd have to assume they're giving him a large portion of their playing time. He also had like a 260 average last year, so he's able to find a spot in that lineup.
Yeah, and he's a second baseman, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean you got Abrams.
Not to be confused with the starter or the reliever.
Yes.
Named Luis Garcia.
Yeah, so you got Abrams at short, so he's not taking a spot necessarily. I'll say he hits 15 walks.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a bold take.
Yeah, bold take. You never know with this guy. My question regarding the Nationals, this is kind of subjective. By season's end, who will be looking like the best pickup in the Scherzer, Turner, Soto deals? So candidates, it doesn't even have to be a guy at the MLB level.
Yeah.
So, there's plenty of candidates.
I'm going to give you an answer already. I'm going to say James Wood. That's, I think, the most underrated piece out of any. He's already like a fringe top 10 prospect in all of baseball. He's a bat that was in the Soto trade, like one of the last guys that was thrown in. And I was surprised at how. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not surprised they traded him because I mean you had to get Juan Soto.
Right.
Let me find him real quick. His numbers, but he is just to give you an idea. He had a 956 OPS overall last year between the organizations. With Washington, he had an 829 OPS in A-ball, so he's probably not playing this year. Baseball Prospectus has him as the number 3 prospect in all of baseball. And maybe he's the number 1 prospect in all of baseball come next year because, I mean, Francisco Alvarez will be graduating, Gunnar Henderson will be graduating, Corbin Carroll will be graduating.
Yeah.
I think we could see James Wood as the number 1 prospect in baseball come next year. So yeah, I'm gonna go with James Wood.
Yeah, he's only 20, and
he was drafted out of high school, out of IMG Academy, actually.
Nice. And yeah, his ETA is 2025, so he probably could go up by a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think a best case scenario is we see him in AAA, but I think that's even unlikely because he's probably gonna start back in A-ball. I mean, he only played how many games in A-ball between the 2 levels? He played 71 games in A-ball. So he'll probably spend a couple of games down there. If he does really well, he'll move up to high A for a few months and then double A.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was a part of that that deal. I thought I think the consensus at the deadline was like the best guy not in the MLB in that deal was like Robert Hassel the third. But yeah, I guess this guy is really
I'm gonna say James Wood for sure as my number 1 piece because I mean it's Abrams, it's Hassel, it's Keibert Ruiz, Josiah Gray,
Mackenzie Gore,
and
those are all I listed candidates in parentheses.
I'm gonna go with James Wood.
Yeah, all right, good. I learned a lot about James Wood today.
Amazing.
The more you know. All right. So moving on from the Nationals, we will be talking about the Miami Marlins, who went 69-93 last year to finish 4th in the NL East. Over the offseason, they lost Pablo Lopez, Miguel Rojas, Richard Blyer, Brian Anderson, and J.J. Bleday. They added Luis Ariz, the 2022 AL batting champion. They also added Gene Segura, JT Chajwa, Matt Barnes, and AJ Puck. I'll start with my players to watch.
Ooh.
Because there was one where I was like, I think there's going to be overlap here.
Mm-hmm.
So, because he's just fun to look at.
Yep, he is.
So, I have 2 players to watch. Actually, I'll just do both to start.
Yeah.
So the first guy I got to talk about, he's super fun batted ball profiles last year. Brian De La Cruz.
Yeah.
So Brian De La Cruz, he just came up out of nowhere. He had like a really, really hot streak at one point. He was a How About That. He won one of your custom awards because he was
the Hershey Award.
The Hershey Award, yep.
Not the cool award there. The Mercy Award was where it was at.
Yeah.
Shout out to Griffin Jacks.
But Brian De La Cruz is a 26-year-old center fielder, and despite a 725 OPS and 355 plate appearances last year, he was an amazing hitter. His expected WOBA, expected slugging, and expected batting average were all 90th percentile or higher. His average exit velocity and barrel rate were also 82nd and 84th percentile, respectively. Out of 281 hitters with 200-plus batted balls, De La Cruz's sweet spot percentage was the highest. We're going to mention sweet spot percentage probably a couple times throughout the preview. Sweet spot percentage,
especially if we're talking about Brian De La Cruz.
Yes, sweet spot percentage is batted balls with a launch angle between 8 and 32 degrees. It's kind of like the ideal place to hit a ball. It's usually like a line drive or a low fly ball that's not going to hang up in the air too long. And there's some great results on that. I'll probably pull the league results on balls in the sweet spot later. But Brian De La Cruz was in the sweet spot more than anybody in Major League Baseball last year. And also, so the reason why he didn't necessarily pop off in terms of non-expected numbers, he only had a 103 OPS plus, and that's because he had the 5th unluckiest batting average and expected batting average difference, and the 3rd unluckiest slugging and expected slugging difference out of 281 batters. So that's what I have on Brian De La Cruz. And then my second player to watch, which was to, maybe add another player if we had the same one, is Jesus Luzardo, 25-year-old starting pitcher. They got him in the Starling Marte trade in 2021. He started to really come into form last year. In 103rd innings pitched, he posted a 3.32 ERA, 3.12 FIP, and 3.39 expected ERA, all very, very good. He increased his strikeout rate from 22.4% in 2021 to 30.0% in 2022. His walk rate also decreased from 11.0% to 8.8%. And he had a career high in four-seam fastball velocity last year at 96.3 miles per hour, and that was in the 85th percentile in all of baseball. So yeah, that's all I got for Marlins players to watch.
Very cool. We do not have overlap.
We don't have overlap.
Yeah, no. There was a guy on the Marlins that I also think is very fun to look at for several different reasons, and I've been looking at him since about June of last year. I'm talking about Edward Cabrera. He's one of my faves. Last year, he led the 4,572 seasons since the pitch tracking era began in 2008 in average changeup velocity. His changeup was averaged out at 92.5 miles an hour, and that's also the 4,572 seasons. That's minimum 50 changeups thrown in a season. Nobody threw harder than Edward Cabrera did, and he threw He is the all-time leader since 2008 with 56 changeups reaching at least 94 miles per hour. He is the hardest changeup in velocity that we've ever seen, probably ever. He owns the top 3 most 93-plus mile-per-hour changeups thrown in any single game since 2008, 28, 22, and 21, respectively. He all threw those last year. He was in the top 20th percentile in average exit velocity, hard hit rate, expected batting average, and whiff rate in 2022. Also in 2022, 97% of all changeups that he threw topped 90 miles per hour. That ranks first among the 484 pitchers since 2008 that have tallied at least one of such pitch. He had a game against the Rockies last year where he threw, I believe, that was the one where he threw 28 changeups that were at least 93 miles an hour. At one point in like the 4th inning, one of his changeups made like the game board on Savant, where it's like the top 5 fastest pitches of the game. He had a changeup on there.
That's hilarious.
Which was incredible. I've gone back and watched that outing multiple times because it was stupid. It was ridiculous. He threw a 96 mile an hour changeup in that game.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, he's a guy to watch. The one thing that he can improve on is his walk rate. He had an 11.4% walk rate last year, which was bottom 10%. But he's a guy that you need to watch when he's on the mound, strictly for his stuff alone, because I mean it looks unhittable. And sometimes he doesn't know where it's going. That's the only thing. But
yeah,
I mean he's an ace in the making for the Marlins, and they have many.
Yeah, and that's also one thing I should have mentioned with Jesus Luzardo is like, the Marlins, their strength is their starting pitching. However, like, 2 years ago, I thought this 2023, I had a take that the 2023 Marlins were going to lead in starter ERA. However, that's because I thought like Trevor Rogers was going to,
I mean, he could
bounce back,
yeah.
But like, based on last year, it doesn't look great. And I thought Sixto Sanchez was gonna be back by this point, but he's in camp, so I guess that's a good sign.
Unless it's like one of those deep fakes.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, and they just lost Pablo Lopez, but they have the defending Cy Young.
They have Yuri Perez coming up this year.
Yeah, and guys
He's
like
6'10", by the way.
Guys like
he's very tall.
Guys like Luzardo and Cabrera, who I believe are both heading into their age 25 season, could be crucial to, winning the Marlins some ball games, and being, core pieces for a good while. Actually, I have to take this for a second.
Okay.
Hello. Yep. Yes. Yes, I can. Thank you so much. I do, yes. Thank you so much. Bye. Okay. Awesome.
Woo! I thought I was hearing things with the alarm, but it turns out it's real.
I thought it was just my thoughts.
I know, I'm not even kidding. I was like, oh my god, why am I hearing the alarm?
Anxiety's through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I finished my point on
the
young Marlins.
And I finished my Edward Cabrera.
Yeah, all right. So that does it for the Marlins. And now we get into
No, we have questions.
Oh, yeah, forgot. Questions. Yeah, I'll start with my question. Oh, boy, I didn't put a question. That's my bad.
Make up one on the spot.
I'll try to, I'll do.
Who will be good on the team?
How about you ask your question, and I'll think of mine while I'm answering?
All right, I will do that. Which player has the best chance of returning to the form that they were in when the Marlins acquired them? Avisail Garcia, Jorge Soler, or Jacob Stallings?
So wait, say that again.
So, which player has the best chance of returning to form, like the form that they were in when the Marlins acquired them, because all of them had down years last year? between Avisail Garcia, Jorge Soler, or Jacob Stallings?
I'll say Avisail Garcia, because I think he has like a longer track record of being a very good performer, at least offensively.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just seemed like a weird outlier last year, whereas like the other two, I think you could have seen it coming a little more. Yeah, I just realized the Nationals was the only team I put my questions for.
Nice.
Could I take like 5
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
come up with some questions?
Yeah, for sure.
My bad. So now over to my question, as I've prepared them now. Will Trevor Rogers have over under a 3.90 ERA in 2023?
So he was well under that in 2021 and well over that in 2022.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say under. I'll take the under. I think he can have a bounce back year. I mean, this was kind of the year that we were hoping for Marlins pitching. I'm sure that he can figure it out. I admittedly have not looked too much into what went wrong with him last year.
Yeah.
But I think he can bounce back.
Yeah, he had a 2.64 ERA in 2021, finished in 2.55 FIP as well, and he finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting. We both argued
he should have won.
Argued he should have won.
Yeah.
And last year 5.47 ERA, 4.35 FIP. But yeah, we'll see. We'll kind of see where he lies this year.
Yeah.
You don't really, hard to predict these things. But yeah, he could be a crucial part of, how many games this team wins and maybe the outlook of their future. Because, there's a lot of young starting pitching, even outside of Sandy Alcantara, that could break out. And Trevor Rogers is one of those guys who could be a staple of the future. All right, so now we move on to the defending NL champion Philadelphia Phillies.
Feels so weird to say.
Yeah, because they went 87 and 75. They finished third in the NL East. They took the 6th seed in the playoffs. They beat the Cardinals in the wild card round, beat the Braves in the NLDS, beat the Padres in the NLCS, and lost to the Astros in the World Series. Over the offseason, they lost Zach Eflin, Gene Segura, Noah Syndergaard, David Robertson, Matt Vierling, Corey Knebel, Kyle Gibson.
Matt Vierling.
Yeah, Kyle Gibson, Nick Matone, and Nick Maton, and Brad Hand, who had a 2.80 ERA, surprisingly. And also over the offseason, they added Trey Turner, one of the best players in baseball, Taijuan Walker as well, Craig Kimbrell, Gregory Soto, Matt Strahm, and Josh Harrison. So now over to you. Who is your player to watch for the Phillies?
So my player to watch is definitely another guy like Hunter Harvey, who's more interesting than good.
Yeah.
He's the projected number 5 starter in this rotation. I'm talking about Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter threw his sinker 33% of the time last year, the most of any pitch in his arsenal. Chris, I'm going to point to you like that scene in Moneyball.
Yeah.
Why do pitchers throw sinkers?
To get ground balls.
To get ground balls, thank you. Bailey Falter's sinker induced a 32.9% ground ball rate. That is the 3rd lowest among the 174 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls allowed against their sinker. So he doesn't get ground balls, but he throws a sinker more than any other pitch. His sinker had a 20.9-degree launch angle, the 2nd highest on that same list of 174. And this was because Falter had location issues. 14.3% of all sinkers that were thrown by Bailey Falter were in the lower third of the strike zone. And if you move up, 45.1% of them were in the upper 2/3 of the strike zone. That would be the 11th highest rate among the 128 pitchers with at least 300 sinkers thrown total. Now, why does this matter? Because in 2022, 63.6% of all batted balls against sinkers in the lower third of the strike zone across all of Major League Baseball were ground balls. Again, batted balls in that zone against sinkers had a 63.6% ground ball rate. If we move to the upper 2/3 of the strike zone, that number shrinks to 48.5%. It goes down 15%, and that's where Bailey Falter lives. He had the 7th lowest ground ball rate last year among the 155 pitchers with at least 250 batted balls allowed. He needs to locate better to become what he needs to be. So Bailey Falter, if he wants to become I don't know if he's like ace, but if he wants to be a good 3-4 starter, he needs to locate that sinker better. If he can't do that, he needs to change his arsenal because it's not going to work if he's throwing his sinker in the upper 2/3 of the strike zone almost half the time.
Yeah, I'm looking at his baseball savant right now. Yeah, interesting type of pitcher for sure.
Yes.
It says what I imagine it is
Doesn't have a lot of movement.
They don't have two seamers on savant.
Yeah.
So I imagine it's kind of a two seamer because it says his vertical movement on his
it's one of the lowest.
I think
it's third lowest in baseball.
Yeah, it's one of the lowest. So I guess he probably uses it more as a two-seamer, but there's also no horizontal movement on it either.
No. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
But if it doesn't move, it doesn't move, but you still got to locate.
Yeah.
And you can get better results if you locate.
Especially, yeah, it looks like he's a lower velocity type pitcher, and like it's better for higher velocity pitchers to pitch up in the zone and lower velocity pitchers to pitch low in the zone.
You know what is funny? There are two players in baseball history named Bailey, and I've put both of them down as a player to watch.
Oh,
because I had Bailey Ober last year.
Yeah, a couple starting pitchers.
Yeah.
Young starting pitchers. Yeah, Bailey Falter, projected number 5, starter in the rotation. My player to watch, you may know him from his days in the Keene Swamp Bats. Shout out to the NECBL. Yes. Funny because he hit like 114 in the NECBL, which is crazy to think he's an actual good. He's a good MLB hitter.
I can't wait for the players to watch in like 2025.
Yeah.
When it's like, you may know him from his time with the Winnipesaukee Muskrats. It's Jacob Corson.
But I'm talking about Derek Hall. So with Bryce Harper out the first couple months, if you didn't know, Harper had, I think, elbow surgery. Mm-hmm. And, he's going to be out for the first couple months of the regular season. So with Bryce Harper out, Derek Hall is projected as the starting DH on Fangraphs. They project him the number 6 hitter. Derek Hall in 142 plate appearances last year, he hit 250 with an 804 OPS, pretty solid. When he hits the ball, he hits it really well. He had a 91.4 mile per hour exit velocity, which is top 9%. Sorry to interrupt you. That's the same as Joey Meneses. And yeah, both would be top 9% among 497 hitters with 50-plus batted balls last year. Also, Hall had a 17.4% barrel rate, which is top 1.5% among those 497 hitters. Also on contact, he slugged 772, which is top 3% among those 497 hitters. Now, yeah, he slugs great on contact. His issue is making the contact. He had a 31.0% strikeout rate last year, and also, not great relative plate discipline. He had a 3.5% walk rate. So strikeout minus walk rate was like 27.5%, which is very, very bad when you're a hitter. But when he hit the ball, it was great. He also had a 32.6% chase rate, which was in the top 30% among 434 hitters to see 250-plus pitches out of the zone. And he had a 33.7% whiff rate, which was top 12% among 432 hitters to swing at 250-plus pitches. Now, I guess to look optimistically, the lack of walks might be a little uncharacteristic. He had an 8.7% walk rate in 660 career minor league games. So it's not necessarily like it's his style of play to not walk a lot. Like, a guy like Wander Franco or, Luis Garcia from the Nationals, I don't think there have ever been guys that walk a lot. Derek Hall, he usually has an average walk rate according to his minor league statistics. So maybe he just needs to see, there's a good chance he needs to see more big league pitching to give him more discipline and maybe lower his strikeout rate, increase his walk rate. But yeah, when he hits the ball, it's pretty crazy. He, a 17.4% barrel rate is nothing to scoff at. So, look out for him. He's probably going to get out more at bats with Bryce Harper being out. So yeah, look out for Derek Hall. from the left side at DH.
You may know him from his time at Alumni Field
Yeah.
in Keene, New Hampshire, but this time he's going to Citizens Bank Park.
Yes. What is your question?
My question, between Aaron Nola and Zach Wheeler, who will have the most effective pitch by run value? If we're looking for candidates based on last year, Nola's four-seamer last year had a -11 run value. His cutter had a -7, and his sinker had a -11 as well. For Wheeler, both his four-seamer and his sinker had a -10.
Interesting. Going very, very sabermetric.
Very, very niche.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised Nola's curveball didn't really pop off, or maybe I confuse his curveballs for a slider. But
you know what? I wrote curveball instead. I said cutter when I meant curveball.
Oh, okay.
I wrote CU. I don't know why I thought that wouldn't translate to cutter in my head.
What was his curveball run value?
-7.
-7. Maybe because it just looks good. I'm gonna say, or I don't know. Fastballs in general can get good run values because they throw it a lot. And what was Wheeler's at -10?
Both of his sinker and fastball.
I'll say Wheeler's fastball.
Okay.
I'm gonna say it gets the most
the least run value.
Which is good.
I did go with this very sabermetric based question more than usual. I was like, you know what? I want to do something unique here, and we have two very good pitchers, one of which is in a contract year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where he's probably going to be the best pitcher on the market, not named Shohei Ohtani.
And the other, it feels like it's gone by so fast, still only has 2 years left on that deal.
What a deal that's been, by the way.
Yeah. I was really not keen on it.
I was hyped for it. I was like, Phillies just got a good one.
I thought Wheeler was the one stealing, but it turned out it was the Phillies. I was definitely wrong about that one. My question is also very subjective. Will Brandon Marsh look like a reliable everyday starting center fielder by the end of the year?
So the Phillies have gone through quite the carousel of center fielders the last couple of years. Obviously, they had Matt Vierling for a while, or for a year. I forget who they had in 2021 off the top of my head. But it was interesting. Does he look like an everyday? I mean, he had flashes of moments with the Angels.
I was about to say that, yeah. Like he's shown flashes.
But do we see it on a consistent basis? I assume is what you're talking about. That Andrew McCutcheon in 2021 is their center fielder. I am not sure. I think I need some time to think about this one. But I'll come up with an answer. Every day. So I mean, like, if we're talking every day, does this mean like 1.5 to 2 win season?
It means like, okay, so, and I'll vamp on this while you think about it. But like, Brandon Marsh, by the way, he came up as a top 60 MLB prospect in 2021. I think he's heading into his age 24 season or 25 season right now. And he's like, he had a great batted ball profile in 2021. He was my 2022 Angels player to watch.
He has a 376 career BABIP.
He strikes out a lot, but when he hits the ball, he hits it hard, and he typically hits a lot of line drives too. At least he did in 2021. But he got traded mid-season last year for the
Logan O'Hoppe,
for a guy who is now the Angels' best prospect, Logan O'Hoppe. He strikes out a lot. But I guess my question is like, are the Phillies going to have to go center fielder searching again after like this year?
And if we're talking center fielder specifically, he's good at defense. That is a strong suit of his. I mean, I would start by striking out less than 30% of the time.
Yeah.
That would definitely be a start. I don't know because, I mean, his BABIP is so good. Like he has a 376 career BABIP. That's insane. And he has a 248 career average. Which just goes to show you how bad the strikeouts are.
And with the Phillies last year specifically, he had a 773 OPS, which was a lot better than what he did with the Angels.
I mean, off the top of my head, I don't really know who else would be available after this year if the Phillies have any internal options.
Yeah.
Because when I think of Phillies' top prospects, I think of like Andrew Painter and Mick Abel.
Yeah.
Who would not fit that bill.
Right.
I mean, I think the Phillies are going to need to start seeing him as an everyday left fielder.
Yep.
He had a 1.7 FWAR last year. I'm saying if to be every day, I'd say he needs to be at least like 2.3. He'll be getting. He played 34 games last year. He'll probably be playing around that many this year. I'll say yes. I'll say he does it. I think he has a weighted runs created plus around like 105 to 110.
Yeah.
With solid defense, and that'll give him everyday time.
Yeah, not looking for an all-star, but
Yeah.
a guy who can start every day. 'Cause he does. It's Brandon Marsh. You don't know exactly on a day-to-day basis what you'll get from him.
Yeah.
Could be awesome. Could be not the best.
Could be not awesome.
But yeah, Phillies have a lot of positions filled, but yeah, center field has always kind of troubled them.
Yeah.
Since Shane Victorino. But now we move on to the Mets, who have gotten a lot of press this offseason.
Yes, they have.
For good reason, I'd say. Last year they went 101-61 and finished second in the NL East, and earned the 4th seed in the playoffs, but lost to the Padres in the wild card round. Over the offseason, they lost Jacob deGrom, Chris Bassett, Taijuan Walker, Seth Lugo, Trevor Williams, Tyler Naquin, Joely Rodriguez, Trevor May, James McCann, and Dominic Smith. But they also added quite a bit, and a lot of these additions, I didn't put them in additions, but they also re-signed some guys that were important. They added Justin Verlander, the reigning AL Cy Young winner. Also Kodai Senga, a really good Japanese starter that was sought after by a lot of teams. They also added Jose Quintana, added Brooks Raley, David Robertson, Tommy Pham, and Omar Narvaez. I will start with my player to watch with the Mets. It's a guy who we've seen in person on the I forget the name of the team, but they're Double-A team.
Oh, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies.
We saw him on the Binghamton Rumble Ponies.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Brett Beatty.
Yep.
Who is the number 21 prospect.
I was going to say, there's no shot he's number 1 either in the Mets system or.
Yeah. He's number 21. He's the number 21 prospect in baseball. He's the number 2 prospect in the Mets system, according to MLB.com. He is not projected in the Mets opening day roster, but I would say he's bound to get some playing time at the major league level this year, like a good amount of playing time too. In 95 minor league games last year, he hit .315 with a .943 OPS, 11.7% walk rate, and 9.8% extra base hit rate, which are both multiple percentage points above MLB averages. In 42 plate appearances at the major league level last year, he hit .184, but he had a .287 expected batting average, so that poor performance on the surface last year at the major league level in 11 games probably wasn't, what it actually was on the stat sheet. Along with that, in those 42 major league plate appearances last year, he had a 91.1 mile per hour average exit velocity and a 43.3% sweet spot percentage, which is 10.3 percentage points above MLB average. Again, very, very small sample size, but it looked like, when he was at the MLB level, he was able to hit the ball hard and in the right direction in those 11 games. He's heading into his age 23 season. What I'm looking at is, obviously he's a corner infielder. Obviously, Pete Alonso has his place as the starter as the Mets first baseman. But you got Eduardo Escobar at third base, who's a switch hitter. But also on the bench in the projected Mets opening day roster is Darren Ruff. And personally, I think he had a very bad year last year, and it's not like he can really platoon with Escobar or Alonso even. He might be a DH option, but I don't think he's necessarily a platoon option because he is a righty. Brett Beatty brings that presence on the left side of the batter's box, and I think we could see him making some contributions this year. So obviously the headliner of the Mets organization prospect wise is Francisco Alvarez, who I think is he still number 1 prospect in baseball?
Yes, he is.
he's their great catching prospect. Obviously, look out for him. But Brett Beatty also should be looked at, as even with this 2023 Mets team. Who is your player to watch?
My player to watch is one of the additions that the Mets made. I think this could be one of the best value pickups of the offseason. I'm talking about Jose Quintana.
Nice.
Yeah, guy that you had as a how about that last year. Quintana allowed the softest average exit velocity in any season throughout the StatCast era of his career in 2022. He allowed an average exit velocity of 86.5 miles per hour. He also led the majors in home runs per 9 with 0.43. And more importantly, he is moving to a ballpark that is more favorable in terms of home runs than the 2 that he had previously played in last year. Citi Field has a park factor around 10 points lower in home runs than both Busch Stadium and PNC Park. They were actually back to back, which is convenient. He just for perspective on how good he was last year, he was tied with Sandy Alcantara in FIP. He had the same FIP as Sandy Alcantara.
Wow.
Jose Quintana. They both had a 2.99 FIP. And I mean, he's under so much less pressure, I think, because he was kind of brought in as, I don't want to say the guy in St. Louis because they also brought in Jordan Montgomery, but I mean, he was expected to make a playoff push with St. Louis. He was, in Pittsburgh. I guess there wasn't a whole lot of pressure there, but he was the best starter that they had. He was probably their biggest pickup of that offseason. In New York, he's expected to be a 3-4 pitcher, kind of like he was with the Cubs a few years ago. And I think he's going to do a really good job in that. And I think he's going to, do a good job keeping the ball in the park against some good lineups like the Braves or the Phillies. And that's going to help the Mets win some games and possibly the division.
Yeah. Jose Quintana, I really appreciated his season last year. Also, not to mention in the playoffs, I think he went like 5 1/3 scoreless against the Phillies, and he had a crazy last 5 starts. I think it was a sub-1 ERA in his last 5 starts. Mm-hmm. He's definitely good, and them getting him, the Mets getting him at $13 million a year for 2 years, in this offseason, that was a steal, most likely. Now on to questions. My question regards to Mets outfielders. Who will have more wins above replacement, Brandon Nimmo or Starling Marte? Nimmo had more last year, but over the last 2 years, in terms of FWAR, I think Nimmo has 8.7, Marte has 8.5.
I'm going to go with Brandon Nimmo on this one. He got a nice new contract. He's still a very good on-base guy. Starling Marte is how many years old now?
He's 34.
That's what I was going to guess. He's 34. Yeah, I think the defense is going to carry Nimmo a lot more, especially because he's probably going to be the everyday center fielder. I'm going to go with Nimmo. My question is sort of similar. It's just a simple who leads this team in FWAR, because there are a lot of options both on the offense and the pitching side. I'm going FWAR.
Yep.
So... what do you think?
FWAR. So Lindor led them last year. I'm guessing, I think that's what happened. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of good options with among Lindor, Lindor, McNeil, Nimmo. I wouldn't say Pete Alonso is a good candidate.
No, he's not.
His defense.
I would agree that he's not a good candidate. He's a good player, not a good candidate for this question specifically.
And then you add in Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. I'll say Lindor repeats again because he has.
That's a good pick.
Even if he maybe isn't great offensively, he still has that amazing defense and amazing base running. So I'm gonna say Lindor repeats as the Mets FWAR champion.
Fantastic.
Now we move on to the Braves, who won the World Series in 2021. I forgot for a second. They went 101-61 and won the NL East, and they lost to the Phillies in the NLDS after getting their bye. Over the offseason, the Braves lost Dansby Swanson, William Contreras, Kenley Jansen, Adam Duvall, Jake Odorizzi, Darren O'Day, Jesse Chavez, and Robbie Grossman. They didn't add too much, not that they need to, considering all their young talent, but they added Sean Murphy, and also Lucas Lutke, which kind of went under the radar. who is your Braves player to watch?
So my Braves player to watch is kind of another addition, hopefully, because this guy has been through a lot, and I'm hoping that we can see the return of Michael Soroka, as he goes by now. But if you ask Baseball Reference, it's Soroka Michael. I've never seen a Baseball Reference error where it just has the last name first. But if you go on, as of 11:46 a.m. Eastern Time on February 20th, if you go on Mike Soroka's Baseball Reference page, it says Soroka Michael.
Yeah, I love that.
Let's take it back to 2019 and remember the last time Mike Soroka pitched a full season in the majors.
Yeah.
He led the National League in home runs per 9 with .7. That was in the year where everyone was giving up home runs left and right.
Yeah.
Michael Soroka was not. He had the third lowest fly ball rate among the 152 pitchers with at least 250 batted balls. His fly ball rate was just 15.3%. He had 3 pitches that he threw at least 300 times that had a run value per 100 below -1. And they were his sinker, his slider, and his changeup. His entire arsenal was extremely effective. Also in 2019, 40% of all batted balls he gave up were pulled, which was 3% above average. So he was giving up pulled batted balls more than the average pitcher. Among the 152 pitchers with at least 250 batted balls allowed, Soroka's .463 slugging percentage against pulled batted balls was the second lowest. The league average was .724. Soroka's was .463. So he did an extremely, extremely great job of limiting the damage on those kinds of batted balls, of which he produced a lot.
Yeah.
So, Mike Soroka is projected to come back to the Braves rotation this year. The last time he pitched was 2020, obviously. He did have a little bit of a hamstring issue that popped up in spring training, but the most recent updates have said that it's not a big deal and he'll be fine. So fingers crossed that we can see him back on a mound this year.
Yeah.
Because he's had everything go wrong. He had that freak injury. He fell down the stairs. He tore his ACL on the mound or something like that. So it's been a long road back, and I hope that we can see Michael Soroka return. To form too.
Yeah, it all started in 2020. I was I remember watching this game. I was particularly excited because it was DeGrom versus Soroka.
Yep.
Mets, Braves, 2 NL East teams. And I was excited to watch, and he tore his Achilles. I think he was going to first. To cover first base, and ever since then we haven't seen him. But it would be a great comeback story if he was able to come up and even just be serviceable this year. First time back in the MLB since
he's
2019.
definitely a good candidate for comeback player of the year.
Yeah, for sure. My Braves player to watch. So I'm looking into their bullpen. 2 years ago, I highlighted AJ Minter. It's not AJ Minter this time. We're not going to get.
You're not going to get Minter up and moving.
We're not getting Minter up and moving this time. On the Fangraphs projected roster, their closer's Raisel Iglesias, which actually sneaky good move last year to trade for him, knowing that
they gave up nothing.
Yeah, knowing that Kenley Jansen was gonna leave, but he's gonna be probably a great closer for them. AJ Minter had a great season. He's probably their 8th inning guy. But going further, we got to look at Dylan Lee.
Yup. He is projected the number 11 reliever by F4 on Fangraphs. If you look at Zips,
he was really, really good last year. In 50 2/3 innings pitched, he posted a 2.13 ERA, 2.57 expected ERA, and 2.66 FIP. Out of 152 qualified relievers last year, his ERA ranked 20th, and strikeout minus walk rate ranked 23rd. He also had a 35.5% whiff rate, and out of 343 pitchers with 400 swings against them, Lee's whiff rate ranked 17th, which is top 5%. Along with that, Lee threw his slider 47.7% of the time, and he got the 13th most whiffs on sliders as a reliever. Among all relievers, he got the 13th most whiffs on sliders overall. Also, Dylan Lee, particularly against lefties, was dynamite. Lefties hit 158 with a 393 OPS in 77 plate appearances against him. Out of 392 pitchers to face 70-plus lefties in 2022, Lee had the lowest on-base percentage against and the second lowest WOBA against him on when he faced lefties. He had the lowest OBP against and
Nice.
second lowest WOBA among 392 pitchers. All right, so now our final questions of the day.
This actually translates nicely into my question. We all know how good the Braves lineup is. We know what the rotation is capable of, but they have a lot of good bullpen pieces, like you've just mentioned. Who do you think is this team's most valuable reliever? You want to double down on this one?
No, I'm gonna go with Raisel Iglesias.
That's fair. That's fair.
He's still like he's not old. He's like 30, 31 or something like that. Yeah, he signed a free agent contract, but that's because he came up like so young.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that was a guy who had a .34 ERA with the Braves after the trade. .34 ERA, 1.52 FIP. Shout out to my F4 league, my F4
that's
team
true.
also. Contributed well to that as well. I mean, he's amazing. He has a great fastball. Not even looking too deep into it. It's just like I think people are going to realize this year how great that trade was last year because it didn't look too spectacular last year because they had Kenley Jansen and obviously like really when you get a closer it's like okay like it makes more headlines or whatever. It makes it people talk about it more. Now that he is the closer, it's going to be like, oh wow, they got him last year. That's crazy.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll go with Raisel Iglesias.
It's a good pick.
My question is similar to my Mets question. It's about two outfielders. Who will have more WAR, Michael Harris or Ronald Acuna Jr.?
Wow. I will go with Ronald Acuna Jr. I'm expecting a really big bounce back year for him. He came back from the ACL injury last year. Didn't play quite like himself, but I think he was kind of still playing hurt a little bit. I think he's got a real shot to put up MVP type numbers.
Yeah, and what I will note,
but I do get why someone would pick Michael Harris.
Yeah, Michael Harris. Yeah, he won Rookie of the Year. He had about 5 wins above replacement on both websites. Awesome defense, awesome offense, awesome base running. But yeah, with Ronald Acuna Jr., I did notice while I was like looking for someone else's stats, he had like bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 31-point difference in WOBA and xWOBA and a 73-point difference in slugging and expected slugging.
Wow.
His expected slugging was in the 92nd percentile. Expected WOBA was in the 95th percentile. So, like, yeah, maybe it looked bad that maybe it fit in narrative that like he's coming back from an injury, is not the same. Maybe he's not necessarily the exact same, but he also had some bad luck on his side. Like peripherally, he looks amazing. I guess his defense could be better.
Yeah.
He didn't, but coming off an ACL injury, it makes sense why his defense wouldn't be the same. But yeah, that's all we got for teams. Any final words before we head out of here?
We got AL Central next week.
Yeah, true. We've got to reveal our next division. Yeah, AL Central.
Yep, AL Central next week.
Yep. Yeah, after the NL East, it's not a crazy division to get into, but I will say I feel like
it's an interesting one.
It's sort of up for grabs.
Yeah.
After the way the White Sox performed last year, like I think the White Sox have a better roster than the Guardians, but the Guardians are also like a really, really interesting team.
Mm-hmm. They just find ways.
Yeah, like, and they have the youngest team in baseball last year.
Yes.
It's probably going to be similar this year. Yeah, a lot of young talent with the Guardians. But yeah, the White Sox, higher payroll. They added Benintendi too. And I think they're keeping most of the same team.
Yeah.
Didn't lose a lot, I don't think. So it'll be interesting to talk about, especially when we get to season predictions too. But yeah, that as far as the NL East, that's it. That's it for today. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, go check out the YouTube channel. We got some good digital content over there. It is called Above Replacement Radio, just like the Apple Podcasts and Spotify streams. And also, if you're listening on YouTube, go subscribe to those streams, Apple Podcasts and Spotify, just called Above Replacement Radio. Also, if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta and follow me on Instagram at Chris Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs. We'll be probably posting some of this content from this episode on the Instagram and the YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So, we hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next week, where we will be talking all teams in the NL or the AL Central. We will see you then.
This conversation is over.